Hello dear students, welcome for this next lecture of the subject vermicompost. Today our topic of discussion will be vermicompost harvesting. I, Assistant Professor Amol Handore, working at Department of Zoology, KTHM College, Nasik, welcome you for this next lecture. So in the previous lectures, you have already understood how to do the vermicomposting. What are the different methods which are employed for the vermicomposting process? Today, our scope of the today's lecture will include harvesting the vermicompost, that is the finished product, and different methods for harvesting the earthworms. So here you should understand that once the vermicomposting process is completed, we have to harvest the product, that is vermicompost. But at the same time, whichever earthworms we have used for this process, they also need to be harvested. So that is called as a harvesting of the earthworms. So let us start with harvesting the vermicompost. So what is harvesting of the vermicompost? It is simply collecting the vermicompost which is produced by the digestive action of the earthworms. So this vermicompost will be produced in the composting area. For that you have used vermibed or different containers. Whichever method you have used, from that source you will harvest your final product. So this final vermicompost will look brown to earthy brown in color. Okay, so it will be blackish brown in color. And the actual volume that you will get after the completion of vermicomposting process will be hardly 10% of the total volume of waste material that you have supplied. Okay, so if you have supplied say 100 kg of the organic waste, finally you will get around 10 kg of this fertilizer which we call it as a vermicompost. In tub method of the vermicomposting, you will get the vermicast. Okay, so many times you will not get the fine vermicompost produced, but you will get the vermicast which are produced by these earthworms on the top layer of this tub. And these vermicast, then they are harvested and then it is made into the final product, that is the vermicompost. So while doing this harvesting, sometime you can do the periodic harvesting, and in some case of the beds you may not require the periodic harvesting. So this harvesting can be carried out from the top layer in case of the tub method. So periodic harvesting is necessary in most of the type of the beds so as to maintain the free flow. If this free flow is not maintained, you might get the compaction of the final product. Okay, since the watering is not done, you might get the compaction of the vermicompost, and we do not want the final compost as a compacted matter, but we want it in a fine granular form. In small bed vermicomposting process, normally you do not require the periodic harvesting. Okay, so once you set up the small bed, after say 15 to 20 days, you will harvest the entire bed together. But in case of the larger system, you might require periodic harvesting and adding the organic matter. Yes, so basically, while doing the harvesting of the vermicompost, it is carried out in the two steps. First step is collection of the earthworm from the completed vermicompost. So we will discuss first about harvesting the earthworms. So what is meant by harvesting the earthworms? That is separating the earthworm from the vermicompost is simply called as harvesting of the earthworms. Now this earthworm harvesting is carried out for different reasons. Sometimes you might sell these earthworm to other vermicompost units, or these earthworms may be required for yourself to start the new beds. Okay, so if you want to expand your vermicompost production, you may require more beds, and for those new beds you will require the more earthworms. And sometimes you have surplus of the earthworm, you might sell those earthworm in the market as well. Okay, so to start a new bed, the old material needs to be replaced. So the bed needs to be prepared again, and new food material should be supplied to the earthworms. When these worms they are sold, they are in the market, they are usually sold on their weight basis, or sometimes they will also be sold on the basis of the number of worms. So for that you require the separation of the worms, then you will take their weight of the earthworms, and then you will transport them in a sterile containers. That is very important, that sterile containers are used for the transport of the earthworms, otherwise the earthworms might get some diseases. So you normally sterile containers having peat moss. Why the peat moss is used? Normally sphagnum is a moss that is used to maintain the moisture level while the transport of the earthworms, because we know that the moisture level required for the earthworm is very high. So that's why we require the moss for maintaining the moisture level. Yes, so we first separate the worms and then we will transport them. Now we will understand there are different methods of harvesting the earthworms. So what are these methods? The first method is called as a trapping method. Second method is manual harvesting method. Third method is migration method. Fourth is light retraction method. Fifth is shifting method. Sixth is mechanical method. So by these 6 methods we can separate out the earthworm from their bed, right? And so now let us study each method in detail. So first we will talk about the trapping method. So the name suggests that here we are trapping the earthworms. So how we will do that? Okay, so when suppose I have prepared a vermi bed and 15-20 days have passed by, so the final product is ready. Now what I will do, I will take some fresh cow dung. Now these earthworms, they are very much attracted towards the fresh cow dung. So what we will do, we will make small balls of this cow dung, and we will put this cow dung at different places in our vermi bed. Okay, so once we put these balls of the cow dung, these earthworm they will be attracted towards the cow dung, and they will go inside those balls of the cow dung. After 24 hours, these cow dung balls they are removed from the bed. So during these 24 hours, whatever earthworm they are present in the vermi bed, they will enter into these cow dung balls. Now these cow dung balls they are put in a bucket which is filled with the water. Once you will put it into the water, obviously the earthworm they will come out of the dung balls, and these earthworms they will be separated and they would be further sold into the market, or these earthworm can be used in the same unit for starting the new vermi beds. Next method is called as manual method. So manual word means we are separating them by hand. Okay, so when hand picking is done, that method is called as a manual method. So manual method involves hand sorting or picking the worms directly from the compost with the help of hand. This method is a very labor intensive method, right? So we can take advantage of the light. What we will do, we will put a bin containing the vermicompost, and then we will put that vermicompost on a flat surface. Okay, so on ground we will put that vermicompost, and that vermicompost is exposed to the light. We know that earthworm, they will always try to go away from the light, and during this process the earthworm will go and they will settle at the bottom of this pile. Now you will remove the upper layer of the vermicompost, and finally you will get all the worms entangled as a ball-like material at the bottom of this vermicompost. Now this process needs to be repeated several times, because in one go you cannot get all the earthworm separated from the vermicompost. So you will do it many times unless and until you will get the ball of these earthworms huddled together at the bottom of this vermicompost heap. Now you will scoop them out, that means you will pick these earthworms which are in the form of a mass together, and then they have been prepared for the delivery. Okay, so you can sold them in the market by packaging, or you can use it for the next batches. In this basic method of manual harvesting of earthworm, there could be some modifications that are done as per the need and requirement. Sometimes instead of using flat surface, you can make use of a container. So in a container you will give some light, so the earthworm will be collected at the bottom, and then they will be collected by hand picking. So you can also put many piles side by side, okay, and you will do this one after the another. So first you will put say 10 to 20 piles in a row, and one person will start this process, and once he will remove the earthworm from one pile, he will go to the next pile, same process is repeated, then he will go to the next pile, so that in short time you can get all the earthworms separated. Now what is the disadvantage of this method? This method is very labor intensive. You will require many persons to work for this manual method of earthworm harvesting. That's why this method is normally used by the hobbyist, like the person who are doing this as a hobby, or small scale vermicompost producers which do not have any machine or a mechanized system for the separation of the earthworms. Later on we will see there are some methods which make use of a mechanical harvester also. That is a very fast process. So remember that disadvantage of manual method is it is a time consuming and labor intensive method. Now we come to the third method, that is known as migration method. So the name is suggesting that earthworms are migrating from one place to the other. So we take advantage of this, and what we do, we know that earthworms, they will move from one place to the another in search of the food. Okay, so if a food is not available at one place, they will obviously move to the other place in search of the food, and we take advantage of this property for the separation of the earthworms. Sometimes not only in search of food, but if the moisture level is low, then also in search of the moisture or the high moisture level, they will move from one place to the other. So if we give them a suitable area where the moisture conditions are good as well as food is abundant, they will move from one place to the other. Now this is a very easiest method to separate the earthworm from the vermicompost. So in migration method, we will prepare a box. Okay, a box is prepared. It can be made up of cardboard paper, or it can be made up of wooden material. Now the bottom of this box will be made up of a wire mesh. Okay, so you will make a wire mesh at the bottom. It may have different size, like 1 by 4 inch or 1 by 8 inch size diameter wire mesh is normally used. Now you will put some peat moss in this box. Now peat moss, which is moisture, will maintain the moisture level, and then you will add some food material. It can be organic waste, coffee ground or cattle manure that can be put, which will be the attractive food source for the earthworms. Now you will put this box on the top of the vermicompost bed. In this vermi bed, the vermicompost is already produced and the earthworms are present. Once you put this box on the top, the earthworms will be attracted towards the food material. So, since there is a mesh at the bottom, the earthworm can easily enter into the box. Okay, so these earthworm, they will come out and they will enter into the box. Now this box, you can put many such boxes on the top of the vermi bed, and these boxes need to be kept for several hours. During that, these earthworms, they will enter into the these boxes. Okay, and this setup need to be repeated at different location of your vermi bed. So if your vermi bed is very long, you will require more number of the boxes so that all the worms will be separated out. Yes, so this is very easy method compared with the manual method of the harvesting. And this method is most commonly used in the Cuba country for harvesting of earthworms. Even large onion bags can also be used instead of the boxes. So same process you have to repeat here. You will put some wire mesh at the bottom of these gunny bags, and then you will employ it in the same way at different location of the vermi bed. Now what is the advantage of this method? The worm bed is not at all disturbed, okay, because you are not disturbing the bed, but you are just putting this box or the bag on top of the vermi bed, and the worm will enter into these boxes. So there is no disturbance to the vermi bed, that is the advantage. Also, it is the labor required is very less. It is not a labor intensive process. That is the another advantage of this migration method. Now we come to the fourth method, that is called as sideway separation. So what is sideway separation? Here also we employ the same principle, that is attracting the earthworm by giving them some food material. But what we will do here, we will prepare another bed alongside the already prepared bed. So in this picture you can see this is a sideway separation method, or it is also called as a wedge system. So you will prepare the beds at a 45 degrees. So one bed, and at 45 degrees you will have second bed, at 45 degrees you will have third bed, at 45 degrees you will have fourth bed, and it will go on. Now suppose in the first bed the vermicomposting process is completed, at 45 degrees the second bed is present, you will add the food material to it. Now what will happen? In the first bed, since food material is not available, earthworm will migrate from the first bed to the second bed, right? And in this process, you will get the you will not require the manual separation, but the earthworm themselves move from the old bed to the new bed. Okay, so that is called as a sideway separation. So 17 to 14 days the worm will migrate from the finished vermicompost into the fresh bedding. Okay, so you have to give more number of days for transfer of this worm from the old bed to the newer bed. What is the advantage of this method? In this method, it allows the cocoon to hatch, and they will also move from the one bed to the other bed. We know that while the reproduction of these earthworms, they prepare the cocoons. Once these cocoons hatch out, we will have the earthworms. So this cocoon also is a very important stage, and many harvesting methods, these cocoons are not able to separate out. But in the sideway method, since you are putting the bed alongside for many days, even the cocoons present in the earlier bed, they will hatch out and they will go to the second bed. Okay, fifth method, that is called as light retraction method. So what is light retraction method? Here we make use of the light. We know that earthworms always move away from the source of sunlight. It may be sunlight or artificial light, and they will always prefer to live in the shady area. So we can put the large plastic sheet on the floor, and on that plastic sheet we will put all the composting material. So from the vermi bed, the final product we will put it onto that plastic sheet. Then a light source will be given to this heap, because ultimately you are putting this vermicompost, it will form a heap. To this heap, when you put some artificial bright light, then these earthworm, they will start moving to the bottom of this heap, and they will settle at the bottom of this heap. So after 10 to 15 minutes of this process of giving the light, artificial light, they will settle out at the bottom of the heap. Now this procedure is repeated several times unless and until all the worms, they will settle at the bottom of the heap, and all of them will form a ball-like mass in which you will get all the earthworms together. Now you will harvest the upper layer of the vermicompost, and at the bottom you will get all the earthworms together. Now these earthworms, they could be then collected and they are used for the new beds, or they can be used to sell in the market. Next method, sixth method, is called as shifting method. So shifting method, we make use of the a type of a sieve. So shifting method means sieving. So you put the vermicompost on a sieve. Once you put it or you sieve it, the final vermicompost will come out of the sieve. However, whatever worms which are present in that vermicompost, they will remain onto the sieve. Now you will gently shake this sieve to separate out all the worms from the sieve, and these worms then they can be collected and they can be dispatched. Next method is called as a mechanical harvesting method. So in mechanical method of harvesting, you will require a device that is called as mechanical harvester. Now this device is used for the separation of worms and compost as well. So at the same time, you will get the pure vermicompost, and the earthworm as well as cocoons, they will be separated from the vermicompost. This is the most easiest and quickest method of separating the earthworm from the vermicompost. So if you are doing the vermicomposting process, or you have a large unit of this vermicomposting, then you will require this equipment which is called as a mechanical harvester. So in this picture you can see a typical mechanical harvester which will have a shaft. So that shaft has a handle, and then you have a different size rims. Now there could be two type of devices. One is automated mechanical harvester, where you give the electricity and it will automatically rotate, or there could be the manual type of a mechanical harvester, where you have to move that handle with the help of hand, so that it will move and you will get the separation. Now if you see, there are different size mesh net is present in this mechanical harvester. So once the handle is rotated, the vermicompost, being fine granular material, it will fall out of this harvester and it will be collected at the bottom. Whereas the cocoons and the earthworms, they will remain in this mesh-like material. So from these rim of the drums, you will collect all the earthworms and they will be used for the next process of or the next batches, or they can be sold. Yes, so this you have this cylinder in this picture. You can see this round cylinder-like structure. So this cylinder could be about 8 to 10 feet in length and 2 to 3 feet in diameter, and the wall of the cylinder is fitted with the wire mesh. What is the role of wire mesh? It will act like a sieve. So once you rotate it, the vermicompost will fall and the earthworm will be retained on the wire mesh. Now this cylinder is fitted in a slanting position so that the process will be carried out at a faster rate, and it has a wheelbarrow so that which is attached with the handle, and it can be manually or electrically operated. Yes, so this cylinder can be rotated with a small electrical motor. If you have a very large unit, you will require this automated type of mechanical harvester which will work on the electricity. So your work will become very faster. Now the bedding material of the worm is added to the barrel or these cylinders and it is rotated. As the cylinder is rotated, the casting is nothing but the final vermicompost product. It will fall down and the earthworm will be retained. Yes. Now these earthworms are still present on the cylinder. They will be collected with the help of hand. So they can be manually collected and they will be then transported. The compost which fall down below, it will be further sieved and then it will be packaged. So this is all about the different methods of the earthworm harvesting as well as vermicompost harvesting. So if we summarize, today we have understood the harvesting of the vermicompost and harvesting of the earthworms. So while doing this harvesting of the earthworms, it can be carried out by different methods. So we have studied the trapping method, the manual method. In manual method, it is done with the help of hand. That is why it is called manual method. However, it is a very labor intensive method. Third method, we have studied the migration method. Then light retraction method, in which we put an artificial light source, and we know that earthworm will always move away from light toward the shady place. So they will be collected at the bottom of the harvested vermi bed. Then shifting method. In shifting method, we make use of the sideway shifting. So the final bed in which the vermicompost is produced, we prepare another bed at 45 degrees. So they will be transferred to the next bed. Then finally, we have understood the mechanical method, which utilizes the mechanical harvester, which is a machine used for the separation of the vermicompost, and at the same time earthworm will be retained and those can be easily separated. So what is the advantage of mechanical method? For large scale separation of the earthworm, mechanical method is the fastest method and it is the least labor intensive method. So with this we conclude today's lecture.